Mr. Crosby here, and I'm here with yet another GCSE style mock exam video. Okay, I'm sure you're raring to go with this one. I've selected January 2011, and we're going to be looking at the depth study this time, the land of freedom, USA land of freedom. Okay, in this question 4, you'll recall, comes after the first 3 questions, which are on the interwars period. And we're looking at source B to start us off. Source B because source A was the one tackled in question 1. Okay, question A has: how far does this source explain why there was a Red Scare in America? Okay, and we've got to use the source and our own knowledge to explain the answer, and this time we're getting 7 marks. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to go through the source very quickly and try and pick out what it is saying should explain why there was a Red Scare in America. I noticed 2 phrases: China fell to the communists, Russians got the atomic bomb. Okay, both these statements here are helping explain why the international stage and things abroad were contributing to the hysterical Red Scare in America, fear of communism back at home. Now that I've done that, I can tackle level 4 for 5 marks because I've identified why this source thinks there was a Red Scare in America. Okay, the reason given in this source. Now, in the example, okay, it says this fear was deepened with China becoming communist and Russia developing nuclear weapons. I'd be tempted to state that right at the start of this paragraph if I was writing this. Okay, go straight in and say the source suggests that there was a Red Scare in America because of events abroad, such as China falling to the communists and Russians gaining the atomic bomb. Once I've done that, I would then bring in my contextual knowledge to support that. Students can find this quite difficult because if it's contextual knowledge, then how can you be certain that you're not actually including a different explanation? Okay, and the key here is, does it support it? Okay, is it going to back up this reason, or is it offering a separate reason? Okay, let's look at what the example says. Following the end of the Second World War, 1949. The answer's clocked that 1949 was the end of the Second World War. Okay, following the end of the Second World War, America's mistrust of communism deepened. American citizens thought it was their duty and necessary for security to resist the expansion of communism. This directly backs it up because they are resisting the expansion of communism here. Okay, so we've got a direct link between what the Americans were feeling post-World War II and the international events that are going to worry them. So for this part of the question, I need reasons in the source plus contextual knowledge. Okay, now I could get a level 4 for 5 marks by doing the opposite, okay, ignoring the source and giving a different reason for the Red Scare. Okay, however, if I do both, I can get level 5. So if I've already done this and I do the second half, I'm going to get 6 or 7 marks. 6 or 7, it's up to the examiner to decide whether they're going to give you the full marks or just 6. So really make sure that your contextual knowledge is very precise, accurate and relevant. So in this case, I'm looking for a reason not in the source to explain why the Red Scare occurred. The obvious one being, okay, Joe McCarthy, McCarthyism back in America. Okay, that's exactly what this mark scheme recommends. Now, there's not really 2 parts because if you're explaining reasons not in the source, then that is contextual knowledge. Okay, so I'm not going to be saying reasons not in the source plus contextual knowledge. That is the contextual knowledge. Let's look here. So let's just look at a really good example. From 1950 until 1954, the USA was swept with anti-communist hysteria. One man Senator Joe McCarthy could be identified as its leader. Okay, obviously the hysteria was called McCarthyism. Many Americans were convinced by McCarthy they were surrounded by communists plotting to undermine the American way of life. McCarthy exaggerated the threat as he capitalized on people's fear and uncertainty. Okay, so here is a really detailed explanation using things not in the source. You could be drawing on some of your other knowledge about McCarthyism, such as, well, what was this exaggeration? Okay, you could look at the evidence he stated that he said the FBI provided with him that was exaggerated for the number of communists serving in government and things like that. If I didn't want to go for the obvious, if I was feeling brave and wanted to go for something other than McCarthyism, I could obviously go for the role of Hollywood, movies like the Body Snatchers, Kiss Me Deadly, those sorts of movies, and the directors behind them that really helped create a vivid fear in the minds of the American public. Okay, but regardless of that, what we really need to be including is reasons not in the source from contextual knowledge. Okay, so what I need to do here is pause the video. If you're working in a pair, compare your answers, see if you can figure out how you got your marks. If one of you did very well and the other one didn't, maybe you could try and point out to the one who got the lower mark where they could improve. Try and come up with some targets. Okay, did you identify the reasons successfully in the source? Okay, were you able to bring in some of your own knowledge to back this up? Okay, were you able to think on your feet and come up with another explanation for the Red Scare? And how detailed was your contextual knowledge in that case? Alright, so pause it now and we'll start on the next question in a minute. Our next question, question B, is our classic message of the cartoon. Okay, use details and your own knowledge to explain your answers. 7 marks. Okay, every student of mine should be very familiar with this type of question because we do it for the interwars period as well. Okay, so first thing we need is main message. Okay, any levels below that do not have the main message, so it's really key that we go straight in with the main message. So first thing we must have is main message. Okay, that's our number one priority. Okay, now notice that the mark scheme has example here. Okay, it doesn't mean set in stone what the main message is. The message the artist wished to give was that the evidence used by McCarthy was invalid and discredited, and that his case for the Red Scare was going up in smoke. Okay, what the main message always does have is it goes beyond just what the cartoon is showing and has some aspect of trying to persuade the viewer in some way. Okay, so if it was to just say that McCarthy's evidence was not good, that would be a secondary message. Okay, but if we were to, but the phrase discredited here gives us a clue as to the main message because it's much more to do with convincing us what to think of McCarthy. Now, I highly recommend that your first sentence, get some sort of sentence starter in, is for the main message. Okay, so just go in the message of the artist. The message the artist wished to give. Okay, that's a great way to start your sentence. Okay, so I recommend that's the first thing you write when you're answering this question. However, despite that, what I want you to do before you even start writing is look very carefully at the source. So we're going to just have a quick look, see what we can see. Okay, I'm going to look. The obvious thing is we've got some flames here. Okay, we've got a phrase doctored photos faked letters, okay, showing me that the evidence is not legit. I can see that McCarthy is sweating here, okay, and that's probably not just from those flames, but he's also under pressure, okay. We've got a microphone here, okay, because he had a public audience, and I can also see that we've got Herblock in the corner, okay, and you should by now know about Herblock as a cartoonist. If I'm feeling really clever, I might have even noticed that we've got May 1954, which is, in 1954, McCarthy is actually starting to come under some serious opposition and pressure. We've had Senator Ralph Flanders giving his speech to attack McCarthy, Ed Murrow's documentary, and of course his very disastrous attempted prosecution of the army, okay, has all led to McCarthy's decline at this stage. Now, having done this, I've actually started to think not just about the details, but it's going to help support my idea about the main message. So I'm actually going to do this before coming up with the main message, but once I've written the main message, my next stage is to include details. Okay, so I'm going to have, well, I don't want it in blue, I want it in black. Details there. Okay, so details are my next bet. So can I show that he's invalid and discredited using details? Yes, I can. I could say this is shown by doctored photos, faked letters. Okay, these are not legitimate evidence, and I can see that they are discredited by the flames here. Okay, now, it's not enough for me to just state the main message and then state some things that I can see. It must support the main message, okay, and that's exactly what I'm doing here. Okay, he's been discredited. I can see this because the flames are showing that the evidence is not standing up to serious scrutiny, the evidence of course being doctored and faked. Now, if I was to ignore the details and just go into contextual knowledge I know about this, then I could also get my 5 or 6 marks. But having put my details in, if I then put some contextual knowledge in as well, so my next final thing I need is contextual knowledge. Okay, if I put that in, then I'm ready to claim my rightful 7 marks. Okay, so how am I going to support that? Well, let's just look at this practice thing. We've got campaigns of many famous people. Okay, we've got his accusation of Arthur Miller there, and we've even got no one actually convicted of spying. Okay, so he didn't actually gain any convictions. I mean, you could be more specific if you really wanted to talk. Okay, famous people. We know about the Hollywood 10 being accused. We know about the people that had actually attacked him as well. Okay, that I mentioned earlier, Ralph Flanders, Ed Murrow, etc. But it's really key that that knowledge supports my main message. Okay. Is it going to be backing this up? Am I actually using my knowledge to show that McCarthy is using invalid evidence, or am I just dropping in a few things I know about McCarthy generally without any link to that main message or not? So what I want you to do is pause the video for a second time with your partner if you've got one. Again, compare your answers, or just look at your own if you're working on your own, and see where, if anywhere, you've got your marks, and maybe have a think about what your target could be for next time to make sure that you implement that the next time you do one of these main message style questions. Okay, last question then. Question C, and in this case it's why was this cartoon published? It could be photo, and it could be stating why was it published in a certain year, in this case in 1948, okay? By the way, I'm not going to talk about it too much at this stage, but if it does state why was it published in a certain year, make sure that you address that year, okay? Make sure you understand the year as relevant, okay? So we're looking at this question, and we've got to use the source and our own knowledge to explain our answer. So let's look at the source and see what details we can pick out that might help us understand this, okay? So firstly I can see, we've already talked about the year, 1948, but it was also a British cartoon, so it's an external perspective, and I've also got this statement here. Do you think the Committee for Un-American Activities can be in the pay of Moscow to make a fool of America? Moscow being in Russia at the time, okay, the big communist power in 1948, okay. You can also see this woman being carried away is holding some true confessions. The American flag also interests me because there's possibly something to do with patriotism, okay. We do actually know about David Lowe there, and his stance on these sorts of things. But finally, Truman a red, says Mrs. Big Mouth, okay, the accusation against Truman himself, okay, Truman, okay, President Truman. Now once I've done that, I want to start thinking about actually addressing the question, and this question I've explained before is all about purpose, okay, the purpose of the source, cartoon or photo, okay. Now I'm going to put, so our first target is getting down our purpose, okay. I'm going to put in brackets persuade, okay. The reason I'm doing that is I think it's a good way of thinking about this is thinking if I want to make sure I've actually got the purpose, I want to think about what the source is trying to persuade me as the viewer of. Okay, what view does it want me to take? Okay, the phrase in the example is draw attention. Okay, that's quite similar, okay, to this idea. Now again, example doesn't have to be precisely this, but what they're recommending is they are trying to draw attention to that America was hysterical, nonsensical, informed the British public that this is playing into the hands of the communists. Okay, so it is trying to address the British public. Okay, and it's all about this hysterical behaviour. Doesn't make any sense. Okay, why are they carrying away the woman that's got the true confessions? Okay, why on earth do they think that the President of America is a communist? Okay, the next thing I want is contextual information again, contextual knowledge. Okay, very key for all these sorts of questions. They want to know what you know about this topic. Okay, if we look at some of the answers, we've got here the fact that they had the right, that HUAC, House Un-American Activities Committee, which is mentioned here, they had the right to investigate anyone of doing anything un-American. Okay, blacklisted by Hollywood. That was the Hollywood 10 writers, producers, and directors. They refused to answer questions. Now you can actually see that in level 4, contextual knowledge is also drawn in, which gets you 4 marks, and that's without getting to the purpose. So actually the contextual knowledge is really vital here. But for those 5 or 6 marks, we need to link context to purpose. Okay, so it's got to be relevant. So if we're wanting to show that they're hysterical and nonsensical, then our contextual knowledge should be about things that highlight that hysteria. Okay. Now I've just got to be very careful because, like I mentioned earlier, we've got 1948 as a date, so we can't bring in anything that is too out of time with that. Okay, so the Hollywood 10 is a great example because it's starting It started a bit earlier than that and was going on in 1948, but I couldn't use, for example, McCarthy's attack on the army, which obviously was a prime example of hysteria, but well after that date, so that would be a bit of a risky example. Okay, so I want to be very precise, so I'm really going to be talking about HUAC, okay, plus Hollywood in this answer. So maybe one of your targets could be a bit more specific in this case, to think about how much do I know about HUAC and the relationship with Hollywood, and do I know the different things that happened in this case. Okay, so this is the final video, so sorry, final source in the video. So once it's finished, I want you to again look at developing some targets. If you're working with a partner, maybe do that together. See where we've come across. Did we get the purpose? Did we think about what it's trying to make people think rather than just what's happening? So might we want to think about the persuasive nature of sources next time we do this type of question? Do we have enough contextual knowledge? Do we need to brush up on this in particular? Okay, so come up with some targets, and then finally I want you to think about maybe redrafting either question A, B or C, depending on which was the weakest, to implement some of your targets and to see how well you can improve for the next time. Okay, thanks for listening. Take care.